Welcome to this edition of SKNIS Week in Review, a program highlighting the top stories of the work of the government of St. Kitts and Nevis for the past week. Here's a look at some of the highlights for the week of July 9th to 15th, 2021. Application forms for the stimulus package became available on July 16th. Employers urged to ensure that social contributions are up to date. NEMA is more than hurricane-centric, and primary emergency shelters are now accessible. I am your presenter, Sherima Matthew. The application process for persons to access assistance under the recently announced stimulus package is now open, and the forms are available for download via mof.gov.kn. The application forms relate to the $1,000 income support program for citizens who are unemployed and have not worked from March 2020, and the $400 fuel subsidy program that will provide relief to the owners of passenger buses who have been negatively impacted as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris said that these measures, along with the other stimulus relief measures, represent an excellent testament to his government's continuing belief and commitment that, and I quote, "we are all in this together and that no one will be left behind in our fight against this pandemic," end of quote.
This second stimulus package also forms part of our strategy for a full reopening of our economy in a gradual and safe manner. The increased economic activity will provide a good boost to retail and wholesale sectors.
All applicants for the 2021 COVID-19 Income Support Program would be required to submit a completed application form and a copy of their valid Social Security card to the Ministry of Finance no later than August 20th, 2021 at 4 p.m. Workers in St. Kitts and Nevis are strongly encouraged to make regular contact with officials at the St. Christopher and Nevis Social Security Board to ensure that their employee contributions are up to date. This advice, shared by Prime Minister and Minister of Finance Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, is critical as the government continues to roll out income relief support for persons who became redundant in March 2020 and remain unemployed as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The information is also necessary to facilitate severance payments from the government.
I want to remind employees too that they need not wait until they are severed to find out that the employer was not paying. They can go to Social Security at any time and get a printout of the contributions paid on their behalf so that they are able to verify whether or not their employer is doing good by them.
On a similar note, the Prime Minister called on employers who are deducting Social Security contributions from their employees' wages or salaries to meet the requirements of the law. Dr. Harris said that everyone must display a level of personal responsibility and do the right thing to avoid unnecessary stress and unhappiness in society during times of adversity. Turning now to disaster preparedness. The National Emergency Management Agency's NEMA role is more than hurricane-centric as it focuses on natural and man-made disasters, said Claricia Langley-Stevens, Deputy National Disaster Coordinator. Speaking on the July 14th edition of Working for You, Mrs. Langley-Stevens said that signing on to the Comprehensive Disaster Management Strategy, CDMS, in 2016 through NEMA's parent organization, the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, CDEMA, propelled NEMA to be viewed as more than just hurricane-centric.
It positions the agency here in St. Kitts and the Nevis Disaster Management Department on Nevis to be able to embrace protocols and standards that would ensure that we are no longer viewed as a hurricane-centric office, but we look at all hazards with the inclusion of all persons, looking at the policy level, the operational level, the strategic level, and the volunteer, which is the community level. So everybody has a role to play, and that's basically what CDM is. The agency in itself had to go through a process of transformation and build capacity to be able to develop partnerships with our stakeholders that would ensure that we continue to move away from being hurricane-centric and to be that of a more comprehensive nature.
She noted that due to a small staff size at NEMA, it was important to have national subcommittees in place to assist. These include warning, communication and education, medical and public health, transport, housing and shelter, damage assessment and evaluation, environment, foreign assistance, welfare relief supplies and shelter management, utilities, and search, rescue, and initial clearance. Valentine Lindsay, chair of the Housing and Shelter Subcommittee in St. Kitts, has outlined the committee's role in the context of disaster preparedness, adding that it is important to ensure that all shelters are safe, accessible, and equipped with the necessities.
We basically have to prepare before there is a storm. Our role is to examine the number of properties around the country that is used or earmarked for shelter. We would have crisscrossed the country just about 3 months ago, looking at the different community centers, looking at certain sporting complex, and also some church buildings. And so the idea is really to ensure that the sanitary facilities are adequate, are in order, are in working condition. We also would examine the integrity of the buildings, the roof, the windows, the doors, to ensure that they are safe and they are secure and they can withstand any gale force winds. And so we also would look at whether or not the venue is accommodative to persons in wheelchair.
Mr. Lindsay noted that a team from several government departments, including Public Works, Physical Planning and Social Services, as well as persons from the churches, Ministry of Ecclesiastical Affairs, St. Kitts Christian Council, and the Ministry of Human Settlement, is tasked with ensuring that the shelters meet the necessary requirements. He added that once the assessment of the buildings is complete, recommendations will then be made to the relevant bodies so that the issues could be corrected. Prior to the hurricanes of 2017, the National Disaster Management Act stipulated that persons can only enter an emergency shelter 72 hours after the impact of the natural disaster. However, that system has since changed. During the July 14th edition of Working for You, Deputy National Disaster Coordinator Claricia Langley-Stevens explained that the National Emergency Management Agency recognized that the model of opening shelters prior to the impact of a storm worked better.
We found at the mitigation level, we found it necessary to be able to activate some of our primary shelters to be able to accommodate the requests of persons who felt that their homes were inferior and did not have alternate arrangements to be able to utilize the body system that the agency would normally present. And so the Mitigation Council agreed to activate 8 primary shelters on St. Kitts to be able to receive persons who may feel disadvantaged. Because bearing in mind that we were actually looking at being affected by a Category 5 hurricane, and so those were circumstances that allowed for us to move away from opening after, because you wanted persons to do everything in their power to be safe and preserve life.
Presently, the 2020 approved shelters list is in place. However, the 2021 listing is before the Cabinet to be approved, with some shelters being removed and newer ones added. On to other events. Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, has underscored the cordial bilateral relationship shared between the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis and the Republic of Cuba, and said that the government of St. Kitts and Nevis stands in solidarity with the Spanish-speaking Caribbean nation that is undergoing a period of difficulty at this time.
It is a critical situation. We, of course, have high favor for the government and people of Cuba, who has always been with us in the Caribbean, who has provided free education to many of our citizens and residents, who even in our fight against this dangerous pandemic has made available to us its experts in health, and a brigade from Cuba has come to help us. We wish the government and people well, and St. Kitts and Nevis stands ready within the ambit of CARICOM to render such support as may be deemed necessary to help it sit through what is now a most difficult period.
Prime Minister Harris said that the issues that have allegedly led to the protest are constant power outages in residential zones, shortage of medicines, shortage of food and basic items, limited access to vaccines, housing conditions, and the issue of democracy and freedom. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Hazel Laws is appealing to citizens and residents to remain vigilant and comply with the pharmaceutical and non-pharmaceutical measures, because the COVID-19 pandemic is not going anywhere anytime soon. The Chief Medical Officer said living with COVID-19 involves the effective face, space, and hand measures. These are always wearing a face mask when in public, frequently sanitizing hands, and maintaining a safe distance of 6 feet from others. She also advised persons to boost their immune system, exercise regularly, avoid large crowds, and stay at home unless necessary.
These protective measures are very, very important, all right? Because you do not know where the virus is. You do not know who is infected. It could be loved ones, it could be friends. And so these protective measures are simple ways in which you can protect yourself and your loved ones from the virus. There are individuals who are of the impression that we are going to be COVID-free again, probably in another week or two. So no, that's not going to be possible. We are going to continue having or identifying newly diagnosed COVID-19 patients on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, for the next couple of months at least. And so we need to understand that COVID is here and that we need to live with COVID.
Health authorities in St. Kitts and Nevis have successfully contained the second wave of COVID-19 that saw the overall numbers jump from 45 confirmed cases on May 19, 2021 to 544 as of July 15, 2021. The daily case count peaked between June 11th and 23. Since then, cases have drastically trended downwards. Presently, there have been 447 recoveries from the virus. There are 94 active cases and 3 persons have died. Sporting activities and events are expected to resume shortly in St. Kitts and Nevis following the ease of 24-hour lockdown restrictions that ended on July 12, 2021. The curfew imposed by health authorities proved extremely useful in helping to significantly slow the community spread of COVID-19. To protect against the transmission of the virus during sporting activities or events, several public health requirements were instituted by the National COVID-19 Task Force.
The organizers of the event shall ensure that a maximum capacity of 50% is not exceeded inside the building or stadium. They shall also ensure that an accurate record of all persons in attendance at the event is kept, including their names, addresses, telephone numbers, and patient number on the COVID-19 vaccination record card. Additionally,
spectators are required to adhere to the protocols of physical distancing and mask wearing at all times while at the game or match. Persons breaching the measures can be fined up to $5,000, serve up to 6 months in prison, or both upon summary conviction. Medical Chief of Staff at the Joseph Nathaniel France General Hospital, Dr. Cameron Wilkinson, said that unvaccinated persons in society are not discriminated against. Instead, the fight continues in order to protect those who are not able to be vaccinated.
There is no discrimination against the unvaccinated, and we need to stop speaking about unvaccinated as if it's a race or gender that cannot change. Our fight, as I said all along, has been for the unvaccinated. We have been trying to get as many persons who can be vaccinated so that we can protect those who cannot be vaccinated. And those who cannot be vaccinated include our young folks who are below the age of 18. And so there is no discrimination at all. We are encouraging you above the age of 18 who can be vaccinated to get vaccinated so you can protect these persons.
Dr. Wilkinson said that the fight has also been for every pregnant woman and the unborn child and every elderly person over the age of 80. At the end of business day on July 15, 2021, a total of 42,432 doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine were administered since the rollout of the country's vaccination program in February of 2021. This represents 70.3% of the target population who have had at least the first dose, while 19,200 received their second dose, amounting to 58.1%. That was the SKNIS Week in Review for July 9th to 15th, 2021. I am Sherma Matthew. See you next week as we continue to update you, the general public, on what's happening in and around the Federation.